welcome on Justin Steele to the Just Baseball Show, left-handed starting pitcher in his second year with the Chicago Cubs and putting together a phenomenal season for the team. Justin, before we get into any questions about your career, we're going to talk about your early high school days, minor leagues, even the major leagues. Let's first address your health, as you just went on the IL recently with a hamstring injury. How you feeling, my man?
I'm feeling good. It was my lower back, which is very close to hamstring, pretty
Okay.
much same thing. But it's feeling good. Been getting off the mound again. It's starting to feel back to normal and stuff. It was my last start against Milwaukee. I was in the sixth inning and I threw a warm up pitch and just kind of felt something like pull in my back. Didn't really feel comfortable, and I was kind of starting to adjust the way I was throwing to get the ball over the plate, and the trainers could tell something was up. So we just made the right decision, just not to force anything. It's the end of the year and whatnot. So just kind of trying to get my back to 100% before I get back into games and stuff.
Absolutely. And you just had a baby boy late this summer. Do you have any
I
newfound
did.
dad strength that's getting you that's helping you with the recovery at all?
I think so. I mean, definitely. Ever since he was born, I kind of went on a tear. I don't know if it was just becoming a dad, having that responsibility that kind of put a fire under me, or what. But he's definitely been my good luck charm.
Absolutely. You've been shoving lately. And I'm going to take you all the way back to high school. We're kind of going to work through your career kind of periodically. So you were drafted in the fifth round out of high school, but you had a commitment to Southern Miss. How
Mm-hmm.
difficult was that decision to head to the bigs instead of going to college?
I mean, for me, it definitely, it just depended on what the dollar figure was. And, I ended up getting the right one. It made sense for me to bypass college and go ahead and start my professional career. I definitely valued college. My family, definitely valued education and whatnot. I had a little bit of an academic scholarship. I was definitely, had the full plans of going to college and furthering my education and doing everything. But once the MLB draft started, and all that kind of took off, and ended up just deciding to start my professional career, and very very happy with my decision.
So we're speaking with Justin Steele on the Chicago Cubs. This guy was insane in high school. This person who I'm talking to right now threw two no hitters. I think he hit 420 in high school. Like were you the best all around athlete to ever go to your high school?
Um, I'm not gonna say so because there's been some really good athletes come through. We've had 14, it's either 14 or 16 baseball players drafted out of my high school at this point, and it's a very small place in South Mississippi, Lucedale, Mississippi. So
Keeping it city.
there's one high school in the entire county. So everybody in the county goes to one high school. Eric Molds, NFL receiver, he went to my high school. Claude Passo Sr., who threw a one hitter in the 1945 World Series for the Chicago Cubs. He went to my high school. That's who my baseball field's named after. There's been a ton of athletes, but everybody I talk to, like the old heads from where I'm from, they say my dad was the best athlete. So
Really?
it's kind of crazy how that works. But yeah, the high school was the glory days for me.
And speaking about your dad, like in post game interviews, I always hear you talk and use the word competing. Like you're always going out there and you're making sure you're competing. And you can
Hmm.
see it on the mound. I mean, you got that bulldog type mentality. The kids refer to it as you got that dog in them. And your father played at Alabama and your brother played college baseball too. How much of a benefit was it to be raised in a family where they knew how to compete at this high of a level?
Oh yeah, I mean, from a very young age, my dad had me and my brother competing against one another. He was 5 years older than me, but it didn't matter. Like we were in the yard throwing to one another, playing football. Dad's quarterbacking, me and my brother lining up against one another. Basketball, horse, one on one. Dad's kicking our tails in both, like ping pong. It didn't matter what we were doing. Every single day, like there was a competition going on in our household, and I think it definitely shaped me into the competitor that I am today. And it's I love doing it. I love going out there and putting everything on the line, trying to help the team win.
This seems to be a common trend. I was watching the Derek Jeter documentary, and he said that his dad would always just beat the crap out of him at everything that he competed at. And then you kind of ushered the same thing with your kid now. Are you just going to destroy him at all sports?
Oh yeah. He no leeway. Like if he's gonna win, like I want him to earn it. I don't no handouts, wanna teach him, you gotta work for something, and once you achieve it, it feels a lot better.
I love it. And when your kid finally beats you at the sport, kind of when you finally beat your dad, it's going to feel pretty good.
Exactly. Like I still remember the first time I beat my brother and my dad in ping pong.
So you were talking about earning it and moving into the minor leagues. You spent parts of 8 years in the minor leagues after being
Hmm.
drafted as an 18-year-old out of high school. You went from Eugene to South Bend, Tennessee, Iowa. Was there ever a moment though where you thought to yourself, man, maybe this isn't for me?
Um, I never thought that baseball wasn't for me. I remember in South Bend, so the year was probably 2016. I had like a 5 ERA that year, and I remember, and that was the first time I really like faced some adversity in the season, like struggled, all that stuff, and I really needed it because I think everybody needs to experience failure in order to have the most success they can have. But that year, I remember after that season happened, going into that off season, being like, okay, like just had that wake up call. Like now it's time to like really start improving, start working. Like where you stand against guys at low A. You're trying to get to the big leagues. Like you have a lot of room you got to make up for. So I really just started putting a lot of work and intent into my work. Um, but yeah, I would just say at that point, I just kind of went into that off season with a different mindset, different work ethic, and started really honing in on pitching.
Yeah, and I saw in an interview that your coaches in South Bend were really, really impactful for you. And like you said, you were a 20-year-old in A ball, and then you went to South Bend and you dominated. What did you kind of learn from them that maybe now sticks with you in the big leagues? That if a young baseball player came up to you, just kind of that advice that you got from them at South Bend, maybe it was, switching up your mechanics, maybe it was a pitch thing, maybe it was a mindset thing. I guess what was the most
Um,
impactful thing you learned from them?
I'd say the main thing is having conviction and confidence in each and every single pitch you throw. Never throw a pitch that you're not confident in. People always like you'll be watching a baseball game and people always ask like, what pitch would you throw right here? What pitch would you throw here? And 0-2 count. And my pitching coach that I had him in South Bend. I've had him as a coordinator, rehab coach, Ron Vallone. He's been with the Cubs forever, played in the big leagues for 13 or 14 years, 12 different teams. The dude's seen everything. But he would always ask, what pitch would you throw right here? And his answer always is the one you're most confident in. That's the
Mm-hmm.
best pitch to throw in any situation. It doesn't matter if it's Albert Pujols right now and he's just smashing heaters out of the
Insane.
ballpark. If your heater is your best pitch and it's your most confident, like I want you throwing that pitch in that situation.
So speaking about pitches kind of in the minor league, because I want to talk about your pitch mix because you've changed it up, at least going into this season. When we spoke with Nestor Cortez and we spoke with Jesus Zardo, they pointed to a couple of pitchers along the way that maybe gave them a pitch. For example, like CC in the cutter, who he learned from Masahiro Tanaka, or maybe learned from Mariano Rivera, or Nestor and Gio Gonzalez, like learning a slider or anything like that. Was there kind of pitches that you learned across the way from big time starters?
I didn't learn it from any pitcher or anything, but when I started throwing a slider, I think everything kind of started taking off for me. It kind of just added more value to all my other pitches because it was just it was a sweeping swing and miss pitch for me. And then I also had my curveball that was kind of a swing and miss pitch, and then my fastball that, played up as well. So I had three pitches that played off of one another. And at that point, everything kind of took off because with the slider, I was just able to throw for strikes whenever I wanted, throw it to the back foot whenever I wanted. And then they got to a point where they were starting to, sit on the slider. I just start popping fours up, kind of like Rodon. I love watching Carlos Rodon pitch, and I really like to mimic my pitching style off of him.
He's a pretty good one. He was one of my favorite
Yeah,
pitchers going into this year because I think he's disgusting when you get the high spin heater up in the zone with the
yeah,
slider that you just can't see, especially if you're a
yeah.
left-handed hitter. When he got that 2-year deal, we were talking about like best free agent signings this offseason. And I think teams were a little bit hesitant to give him that Robbie Ray type of contract or that Kevin Gausman
Mm-hmm.
just because he hasn't stayed healthy. But when he is healthy, and now he's been healthy all year, you see the potential with him and what a slider can especially do for a guy like you, especially as a left-hander. I'm also interested too, kind of when that slider came to be, because you spoke about this a little bit, but I'd like to dive into it a little bit more. In 2019 in the minors, like you said, you had a rough year in the minors. You had an ERA over 5 in AA, and then the pandemic hit. Like in 2021, you came back the next year and you just forgot how to allow runs. You were just like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. You give up 4 earned runs in AAA through 27 innings, dude. Like, what was that period in your life like? And was the slider the only adjustment that you made, or were there others? Because that was a long, extended period of time. Like, we were talking pre-record about about this company that the Arm and Jack, they got their jobs taken away in 2020 from the minor
Mm-hmm.
leagues. Like, that was a long extended absence. I'm just curious the developments that you've made, not only with the slider, but just in life.
So so that was COVID year, COVID season. Before COVID happened, it was 2019. I was in big league spring training. I remember we had just got back from the Vegas trip for the spring training game. We were playing the A's, and when we landed back in Arizona for more spring training games, like everything was canceled. Like season was getting canceled, everything was ending, and this was my first big league spring training, I believe. And then the next year, once the season started, they decided to have a season. I went to the alternate site, like where the taxi squad was, and that's kind of where I really started taking steps forward and developing, not just my slider and making it the pitch that it is, but just really finding out who I am as a pitcher and finding out what makes me tick and what makes me good. And for me, that was like finding out that my four seam with its natural cut that it has, like moving that thing into righties, up and in righties, moving it downstairs to them, and then being able to backdoor it, which that's kind of the development I would say I've been making over the course of this season. But just finding it, that COVID year was just finding out who I was and what made me good, and just really honing in on that and just hammering it.
I have a simple question, but who are you as a pitcher?
I'm a four seam slider guy. Those are my two pitches that I throw majority of the time. I'm going to move my four seam into righties. It's going to cut, and I'm going to be able to backdoor it to righties as well. Slider can bang it on the backside for a strike, back foot it, and then for me, like if it gets to a point, so there's definitely hitters in the game where you got to start pitching different. I'll start mixing in changeups or curveballs, just show a different pitch to get them off of them too. But for me, I say like four seam slider, like that's my bread and butter, and that's kind of like what got me here. And then for me going into this off season, I'm just going to continue to hone in on them other pitches and just try to make them as good as them too.
And then I agree. Like, your slider is disgusting, and you start throwing it in over 30% of the time right now, and you rely on that four seam. I'm just curious why. I know obviously you want to throw the slider more because it's a good pitch, and we talk about on this podcast. Throw your best pitches more. Like, they're going
Mm-hmm.
to do better for you in the long run. But you do have a sinker and a curveball. Like, you have other pitches.
Yeah.
What kind of made you say, you know what? I'm going to level off these a little bit, because you're not throwing anything north of 10%. It's really fastball slider. And it's obviously worked. Like, you're shoving. You have a 3.18 ERA, and you've been one of the best pitchers in the second half in all of baseball. But I guess I'm just curious.
I used to throw my sinker a lot more than I do now. I think the main reason is just because like the lineups I face now is so heavily right-handed.
Mm.
So for me, like the sinker almost does them a favor because it's going back towards their barrel. Unless I'm like starting it off the outside part of the plate and it ends up away. But like for me, the fastball that I'm going to throw to a righty is going to be my four seam, because if it's going to go anywhere, it's going to cut in on their hands, and that's moving away from the barrel, weak contact. That's kind of what you want, and then the slider also just plays off that as well. But when I'm facing lefties, I throw sinkers a lot more because I like it going into their hands rather than my four seam kind of goes away back towards the barrel.
You must be pretty excited, dude. I mean, the results so far this season, like how you feeling? Like, I have plenty more questions for you, but how you feeling, dude? You're shoving. I've said it multiple times, but you are dominating in the bigs right now.
I mean, it definitely feels good. Put a lot of hard work, a lot of effort into this, a lot of years, like you said, eight years in the minor leagues. That's no short stint in
No
the minor
joke.
leagues, but it's hard work pays off, and I'm just happy to be here and just want to keep improving.
A story that I thought was kind of hilarious when you face the Braves. So Willson Contreras, your catcher, and William Contreras are brothers, both all-stars, both awesome players. And he said he wasn't going to call pitches against him when you were on the mound. And the quote
Yeah,
was, if he got a hit, it wouldn't be because of me, speaking for Willson Contreras.
yeah.
How was that experience for you, as they are one of the few brother duos in baseball history, and you had a chance to stare at one in the plate and then one catching you? Like, how was that conversation? What was that experience like?
It was really funny, and we did. I told him in the pregame meeting when we were facing his brother. I looked at him. I was like, "Hey, this is your brother. Like, you tell me how to get him out." And he was like, "Hey, I'm not telling you anything because like he was kind of, it was coming from where like if he gets a hit, I don't want you coming at me because like saying it was my fault." And I was like, "Okay, I understand that." So it was kind of just me. Like he was just kind of throwing suggestions at me with the pitch com. It was more of a suggestion. But it was a lot of fun. Both of them really talented players, really good hitters. They're a lot of fun to watch. And man, his brother, he really pretty swing. I like how he stands up tall, strides right into the ball. He really going to be a really good player for years to come.
What's it like throwing a Willson Contreras? Because I'm sure a lot of Cubs fans are going to listen to this and want to hear about Willson. Like, what's it like throwing to him every fifth day and then watching him in the plate? He's one of the best catchers in the sport.
I love throwing to him. It's fun throwing to somebody that's competing as hard as me out there.
Yeah.
He's got that bulldog mentality. And when me and like for instance, like when me and him get in like tough situations, running on second, third, less than 2 outs or something, like I'm thinking I want to strike this dude out, get to 2 outs, and then I'm in a much better situation. He's thinking the same thing. We both just kind of have that bulldog mentality, like let's go get it, time to bear down, especially when runners are on. So it's really fun being paired with somebody that has that competitive edge like that.
And Willson gets all the shine, of course, because he breaks. But who's a player on the Cubs who doesn't get the shine and the attention? Maybe not even in
Oh
Chicago.
man,
That's I
Th-
know
this
you probably
is
have tons.
this is easy. First one that comes to mind is Nico Horner. Nico Horner is one of the best players in baseball.
Oh,
I've watched him every day this past season, and just when you just ball player, like just a major league baseball player, and you put him at short, he's falling out, like he makes every play, like putting everything on the line every single game. You move him to second, he does the same thing. Like you could put him in center field, and he would play a good center field. Like it doesn't matter, and he's gonna hit 300. Like it's he's so much fun to watch. Another one's Ian Happ. He's having an incredible year, playing a great left field switch hitter. I don't know what he's hitting exactly right now, but he's tearing the cover off the ball. Um, Brandon Hughes, reliever for us. He's having a huge year. Just got caught up this year. He was a minor league hitter just like 3 years ago, 2 years ago. And he's in the big leagues and he's like just making an absolute name for himself right now in our bullpen. It's a lot of fun to watch, even when a season doesn't go exactly how you want it to go. It's a lot of fun to watch situations like this unfold.
Nico Horner, when we asked Cubs fans, we did a who's the most underrated player in baseball kind of stuff. Nico Horner, Nico Horner, Nico Horner. And you watch him play, there's nothing that Nico Horner is bad at. He's
Nope.
above average at everything. He's a good base runner. He's an excellent fielder. He puts bat to ball, but he's got sneaky power and he's got a good arm. He's one of the we even have an article on justbaseball.com. We called him the most underrated player in all of baseball. Is that a proper designation for him?
Absolutely. And the only thing you could say is like he's not hitting the ball out of the park enough. But look at his exit velocities. You see, like
Exactly.
he smokes the ball every
Exactly.
single time. And for instance, like I love when he gets to like 2-0, 2-1, 3-1, 3-0, and he has the green light, and he just takes the huge, like just biggest hacks, and I just love it. He's so much fun to watch.
I need this question answered because I've always wanted to know how tough it is pitching in Wrigley when the wind is blowing out like
Mm.
crazy. Like those days seem to produce 10 runs on both sides. What's your game plan when the wind's blowing out 20 miles an hour? Like, what do you do? Is it just like, well, all I got to do is compete today because it's going to be impossible?
Yeah, I had one of them starts last year towards the end of the year, and wind was howling out, and it just so happened to be the Cardinals in the midst of their
Oh,
17
great.
game win streak. So they were red hot, and he was pitching at Wrigley. The wind was blowing at like 15 miles an hour out. So I ended up giving a broken bat home run that game. It was hit 88 miles an hour off the bat. It was a home run. But the other home runs I gave up were very well touched. So they should have been home runs. But yeah, I mean it's Wrigley can be your best friend and can turn a crap outing into a good outing because like it can turn home runs into just routine fly balls, or it can be like that day where just like if they touch it and it's in the air, it's getting out of the ballpark. Um, there's no place in the world like Wrigley, though. I love that place so much. It's the most incredible place to play baseball in the world. The fans, it doesn't matter what's going on. Like the fans are there, they're going nuts. That place is very special.
Yeah, first of all, I need one of those hats, the Wrigleyville, for all of
Oh yeah,
folks watching on YouTube. So I've always been curious because, I mean, you're from a small town in Mississippi, but then you go to Chicago, and even your wife is from the East Coast. Like, how has it been adjusting to the big city life, pitching in front of maybe, a couple hundred people in high school to then 40,000 in Wrigley and one of the most jam-packed, energized stadium? Like, what is that like?
I mean, I love it. I love competing, and I want to compete at the highest level. That's just kind of how I've always been, and I've always wanted to be on the biggest stage playing baseball. It's been my dream ever since I was a little kid. But coming from a small town, it's you know it's very far away when you look at it. From
Yeah.
like being a little kid in Louisville, Mississippi, and making it to the big leagues. But I mean, that's the case for everybody. The numbers aren't good for anybody. There's kids in the Dominican right now, working their tail off, and one of them's going to make it, and then 10 of them aren't. It's just how it goes. But for me, I just from a young age, I really just didn't have a backup plan. I was like, I'm gonna play in the major leagues. I'm gonna be a baseball player. I don't know if I'm gonna be a pitcher or hitter. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna play in the major leagues. And I've always worked towards that. And I don't even know what the question was, but I'm just kind of rambling right now.
I also just kind of moving back to high school just a little bit because I have one more big question and then we have some rapid fire ones to end it. You kind of decided you said I don't know whether I'm going to be a hitter or a pitcher. Like I'm just going to make the big leagues. When did you make the distinction, or did someone make it for you? Because, like I said, you hit 416 in high school, like you raked, but then you also threw two no hitters. So when was it? All right, now I'm gonna be a pitcher, or did they, when they drafted you, they were like, "Yeah, Justin, you're
Yeah,
throw gas, like you're pitching."
well, once I started getting looks at the professional scouts, it's kind of when the decision was made for me. I was going to Southern Miss. I was going to be a dual guy. I was going to hit and pitch,
So you
which was
should.
kind of the reason. Which was kind of the reason I wanted to go to Southern Miss because they were offering that to me. And I was like, I'd love to continue hitting. Still love hitting. Um, but yeah, that was kind of when the decision was made. It was whenever I was drafted. They kind of took the bat out of my hands.
So we're going to get back to the bat when we go through our rapid questions. But just to end this one, now that you've had 2 seasons under your belt and you've really established yourself as a big leaguer, what are some of your goals for next year? Because you move forward each year, you learn from your mistakes, and you just get better. And you've proven to do that through 8 years in the minor leagues. Like you had your first stint in the bigs, and then you just improved massively from that year. What are your goals for next year?
My goals for next year are I want to lock down 30 starts. Don't miss a start. At least 30 starts over the course of the season. At least 160 innings. And I would say like 190 plus strikeouts. I really want to lock down as like somebody that every fifth day the team can like hand the ball to and feel good about that day. Just want to be known for consistency.
Who's a pitcher that you feel emulates that in a way that you kind of want to be like?
Carlos Rodon's been that this year. Sandy Alcantara's been that this year. Justin Verlander's been that this year. Dylan Cease has been that this year. Um, yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of guys. Dylan Cease has been a lot of fun to watch. Me and him was drafted together. It's one of my buddies. He's really, really happy for him what he's doing over there. He's been a lot of fun to watch this year.
He's got a pretty good slider too.
Yeah, he
Um,
does.
all right, let's get to some rapid fire questions too. So, first one, who's the toughest at bat you've had in the big league so far?
Juan Soto.
Juan Soto, huh? Anyone else come to mind, or is it just it is Juan Soto?
It is Juan Soto, and then second would be Paul Goldschmidt.
Pretty good list. Paul
Yeah,
Goldschmidt against lefties this year is Barry Bonds.
he's very good against lefties. I tread carefully facing Paul Goldschmidt.
And then you got him on, and then you got Albert Pujols on his own team going for 700 home runs. I mean, it's just crazy.
And then Arenado, and then Edman. That lineup, it's a pain to face.
It's a pain, and they're one of the best teams in baseball. But who's the best pitcher you've been able to play with, and then the best pitcher you've opposed against?
The best pitcher I played with would be, I mean, played with Jake Arrieta a little bit last year, and I was talking with Hap yesterday about it. Actually, that run he went on in the second half of, I think it was 2015. He
Unreal.
had a .4 ERA in the second half, and just like he was he was the best pitcher on the planet at that time, and there was no question. Like it was. So I'm gonna go with Jake just because, like I think to him and I think to that stretch he had, and it was just so remarkable.
What about opposed against?
Posed against Corbin Burns.
Yeah, that's sick. That's
Yeah,
awesome. All right. So if you had to cut one from your life, is it fishing or golfing?
golfing,
Golfing's out. You're fishing.
golf. I'm fishing.
Love it. So you have a really impressive card collection. What's your most prized card?
That's a tough question. I have a um graded 10 out of 10 Ken Griffey Jr. Tiffany 41T Tiffany rookie card. It's I don't know. I haven't looked in a while. The last time I looked, it was going for like 8 grand. But just because it's King Griffey's rookie card, I prize that one the most.
Yeah, like you might have.
I don't know. I might have one that's worth a little bit more, but I prize that one the most because it's like I've had it. Me and my brothers had it since we were kids.
Is he your favorite all-time player, Ken Griffey?
He's my brother's favorite all-time player. Growing up, I was a
Yeah,
Tom Glavine fan when I was really young, and then when I got a little in like my teenage years, like Cole Hamels, all them guys, that Phillies team.
love it. And just going back to hitting a little bit. I mean, you hit 418 in high school. Were you upset when they took away the DH in the National League?
I was a little bit. I understand why they did. But for me, I loved hitting. I loved getting into the box. Even when I was in the big leagues, I loved stepping into the box and like just competing and just like trying to get a hit off of whoever it was. But like I said, I understand it, especially I got hurt last year on the base path. So
So it's
yeah,
probably a good thing. I mean, I gotta
yeah,
be honest. Like, I I was pretty happy to see it go, just because there was so many videos of pitchers just going up there and not swinging the bat at all. It was a free out, and then you just don't want him to get hurt. I remember, like, I grew up a Yankee fan, and I remember Ching Ming Wong when he got injured running the bases, and then we lost him for basically the rest of his career. And then you see the guys in big puffer jackets running the bases. So I was okay with it gone, but then at the same time, I can feel for the guys who raked in high school and can actually hit. But I just feel like there was some pitchers who just don't care. Like, was there any pitchers on the Cubs when the DH was gone where it was like,
yeah,
yes,
absolutely. There's I would say there's more of them guys than there is guys that like want to get in there and actually swing and stuff. Um, but there's kind of an advantage to having pitchers that want to get in there and hit. If you have I mean, that's a spot in the lineup. Like there's some strategy. Like I don't know. There's it takes some beauty away from the game, but it also like it's fixing some things like pitchers getting injured and whatnot, which is very important.
so as a guy who's done both, Shohei Ohtani versus Aaron Judge for AL MVP, how you feeling?
I think, I mean, just because of the Yankees and where they're at, and where the Angels and where they're at, you would give it to Judge because I mean they're in the playoff picture and all that stuff, and he's having an incredible year. But it's really hard. Like, I don't understand how Shohei Ohtani's WAR isn't higher because he's so dominant as a pitcher and so dominant as a hitter. I know like something about the WAR stat versus DHs, like it penalizes him.
That's why
more.
Jordan has a 178 WRC plus or something insane. He has like a 5 WAR. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. You get dinged for being a DH. That's the problem.
Yeah. Both of them incredible players, but I would give it to Judge. If it ended right now, I'd give it to Judge right now, just because of where they're at as a team and what he's done for them.
I have a future ticket on Aaron Judge plus 1,800, so I need more Judge propaganda. I need more Judge propaganda. All right, last one. Favorite thing to eat in Chicago, and does Chicago have better food than Mississippi?
Chicago has a more variety of good food. But the quality of the food itself, I can't turn my back on the South. I love good home country cooking. But Chicago's food is really good. I love the pizza. I love the variety of food. Like, it doesn't matter what you want. Chicago's got something good for you. And it's a great place to eat.
Well, thank you, Justin. I mean, this was awesome. Great conversation with you. Welcome, Justin, onto the Just Baseball Show, and you're welcome anytime. Just for Cubs fans who want to see you back on the mound, when you coming back?
Had a bullpen yesterday. Back's feeling better. Gonna still aiming to have at least 1 or 2 more starts before the end of the year. But obviously, the main thing is like just getting back to 100% and making sure I'm 100% healthy going into the offseason, getting ready for next year.
And Just Baseball Show fans, go check out Justin Steele on the mound for the Chicago Cubs. Justin, thanks again for coming, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.